cross. It was meant to horrify the world. It was meant for humiliation. It was meant to last for days. It was meant for slow asphyxiation. It was meant to prolong torture. It was the Roman soldier's job. It was meant to be used by Caesar, but instead, it was used by God. It was meant to stop a movement, but instead, it became the way. It was meant to act on fear, but instead, it awakens faith. It was meant to be vicious and violent, but instead, it became our peace. It was meant to uproot hope, but instead, it became the seed. It was meant to punish captives, but instead, it unleashes freedom. It was meant to build up Rome, but instead, it built up God's kingdom. It was meant to discourage rebel. It was meant to stop insurrection. It was meant to put down Jesus, but instead, it set up His resurrection. It was meant to jeer them and mock Him, but instead, it was His glory. It was meant to erase a chapter, but instead, it became the story. It was meant to hold up convict, but instead, it raised up a king. It was meant to shut our mouths, but instead, it is why we sing. It was meant to be a judgment, but instead, it became our mercy. It's why the song of heaven is the Lamb. Worthy is the Lamb. It was made to kill an enemy, crush dissenters and diversion, but instead, it became the banner of God's love for every person. It was made to be appalling, nailing hands and feet to wood. It was meant to be used by evil, but instead, it was used for good. It was meant to be a symbol of God's assassination, but instead, it became the symbol of God's invitation. Come to the cross. Instead of sin and stain, you are meant to be made clean. Instead of being forgotten, you are made known your sin. Instead of being ashamed, you can live behind your guilt. Instead of feeling empty, you were meant to be fulfilled. Instead of being broken, you are meant to be made whole. Here, Jesus is calling. It beckons you. Behold, come to the cross. Instead of being an accident, you have made a purpose and plan. Instead of being abandoned, you were chosen by His hand. For all who said I can't, God said I can. No matter what you've done, the invitation stands. Come to the cross. Instead of being doubtful, you are meant to know your Father. You are meant to be His son, and you are meant to be His daughter. You were cherished from the start, and you were always in the picture. Instead of being a victim, you are meant to be a victor. The result of Jesus' blood, salvation has arrived. Instead of being dead, you are meant to be alive. The cross. It was meant to signal death, but instead, it's a sign of living. It was meant to be the end, but instead, it's our beginning.